So our brain evolved. And now we can think of something other than our stomachs. Thinking on one side and digesting on the other. A neat division of tasks in theory. But as always, the reality is more complex. Firstly, because our two nervous systems, which are connected by the vagus nerve, are in constant conversation. Secondly, because the brain and the stomach use the same neurotransmitters.
Neurotransmission is the language that nerve cells speak in order to talk to one another. And neurotransmitters are the words that each nerve cell puts out that another nerve cell can understand. Now, serotonin is one of the words.
Serotonin. Michael Gershon has dedicated his life to understanding the meaning of the word, which changes according to the context it's in. And this is what he has discovered. In the upper brain, serotonin means well-being. In the gut, it sets the pace for intestinal transit and regulates our immune system. It is depicted here in red, with the cells of our intestine wall in blue. But surprising as it may seem, 95% of our body's serotonin is produced in our gut.
This serotonin acts on the digestive tube, but also more surprisingly, it is released into the bloodstream and acts on the brain, in particular in the hypothalamus, which is a zone that manages our emotions and takes part in the regulation of emotions.
When the gut and brain converse, the messages they exchange transit via the vagus nerve. But we've known that for a long time now. What researchers have just discovered is that the serotonin that transits clandestinely via the bloodstream towards the brain interferes with our emotions in a much more complex way. Destined for the gut, this surplus of information, which in theory has no real business being in the brain, can sometimes lead to misunderstandings.
We already knew that our emotions could indeed influence our gut. Now what we're seeing is that our gut can also influence our emotions.
Under normal conditions, the exchanges between gut and brain take place without us even knowing about it, making it difficult to study them. But as always in science, by observing what goes wrong, we can gain a better understanding of how things work. Irritable bowel syndrome, or IBS, is, unfortunately, an obvious case study for examining the communication problems that sometimes crop up in the brain-gut couple.
The syndrome is characterized by digestive difficulties, abdominal pain, and a disruption of transit time, but without us being able to find any so-called organic malfunctions from the various exams we carry out, whether via colonoscopy, gastroscopy, scan. That's why these people can't understand what's going on, because we usually tell them, well, we've run extensive tests, and we've found nothing. And they often say, but doctor, I'm in pain, there's something wrong with me. So it's important to explain to them that currently, we explain these functional disorders by malfunctions occurring between our brain and our digestive tube.
What is causing these communication problems? What is sending out the wrong messages? Our upper brain or our lower one? More than just dissecting sausages, the researchers are cutting into intestines. Their work involves measuring the activity of human intestinal neurons.
We're basing our work on the following hypothesis. One of the causes of IBS is due to a faulty communication between the mucosal surface and the gut nerves.
To test this hypothesis, Michael Schemann compares the neuronal activity of the submucosal nerves of healthy patients with those of ill patients. And this is the result on an ill intestine. This film is the very first visual presentation of the signals that are emitted and received by the nerve cells of our intestine. It shows that the neurons of ill patients are far more active than those of the healthy population.
We conclude that these patients are indeed suffering from a hypersensitive nervous system, a sort of intestinal neurosis, if you like.
Michael Scheemann hopes his discovery will soon result in a drug that will normalize this neuronal hyperactivity.